You started choosing yourself, and the room got quieter. It happened gradually, so gradually you almost missed it. The calls came less often. The invitations stopped. The group chats felt foreign in a way they never did before. And you started to wonder if something was wrong with you. If the discipline you chose, the early mornings, the no's, the boundaries, was somehow costing you more than you were prepared to pay. Chosen one, I need you to stay with me right now, because what is happening to you is not what you think it is. You started walking differently, thinking at a different pace, praying with a different hunger, and slowly, quietly, without anyone announcing it, what you used to call your life stopped fitting. Like a coat 2 sizes too small that you keep trying to button. Like a conversation that used to feel like home, and now just feels like noise. You have not done anything wrong. You have not become cold or distant or difficult. Chosen one. You have simply become more, and more does not always fit in the same rooms that held the old you so comfortably. And so tonight, perhaps in the quiet, after everything else has gone to sleep, you are wondering, is this what growth was supposed to feel like? Is something wrong with me? Or is something right finally beginning? Chosen one, hold that question. Do not answer it yet. Because before this message is finished, I'm going to show you exactly what God has been building in you, and why not everyone could stay to watch it happen. You have been calling it loneliness, and in the most honest sense, that is exactly what it is. The empty chair where a certain conversation used to sit, the phone that does not ring the way it used to, the group chat that once felt like family, and now feels like a room where you no longer speak the language. Chosen one, I am not going to minimize that. That is real. The distance is real, and the grief of it is completely, profoundly real. Nobody told you that becoming more would feel like losing something. They told you about the breakthrough. They told you about the blessing. They told you about the open doors. They did not tell you about the quiet. They did not tell you that some nights, walking with God at full capacity can feel like the loneliest walk you have ever taken. And I know what the enemy has been whispering into that quiet, that the discipline made you cold, that you pushed people away, that you became hard or proud or difficult to reach. Chosen one, stop. You are not cold. You are not the problem. You are not broken. You are being rebuilt. And that is a completely different thing. What you are calling loneliness tonight is not rejection. It is graduation. God is not punishing you with this silence. He is doing something in you that required exactly this much space. Something that could not be built while the noise was still running. And before this message is finished, you will understand exactly what He has been constructing. And you will look at this season with completely different eyes than the ones you brought to it tonight. But first I need to ask something of you. If your spirit already knows this message found you tonight, type I have outgrown this in the comments right now. Not for me, for yourself. And for every other person watching this right now, people who chose discipline and felt the distance, people who chose God and felt the quiet that followed. They need to know they are not alone. Type it and keep watching, because what comes next, most people never hear. Here is the first thing I need you to understand. Self-discipline is not punishing yourself. It is positioning yourself. Every time you chose the harder right thing over the easier comfortable thing, you were not shrinking your life. You were calibrating it. You were tuning yourself to a frequency that most of the people around you were never meant to receive. And when you change your frequency, not everyone can follow you there. Not because they are bad, not because you are better, but because you are different. Because God placed something inside you that requires a different kind of air to breathe. Think about a radio tower. When a station shifts its signal, The radio's still tuned to the old frequency, hear only static. Not because the new signal is wrong, but because they are not built to receive it yet. Chosen one, when you chose discipline, when you chose growth, when you chose to let God reshape who you were, you shifted frequencies, and the people tuned to the old station began to fade. This was not abandonment. This was not failure. This was physics. Not everyone can receive what God is now transmitting through you. In the book of John, chapter 15, Jesus says something that stopped me the first time I truly heard it. He says, "Every branch that does bear fruit he prunes, so that it will bear even more fruit." Did you catch that? He does not prune the dead branches. He prunes the ones that are already growing. God does not cut from failure, chosen one. God cuts from fruit. He prunes what is growing, because He wants it to grow further than it can reach with that extra weight still attached. The distance in your life right now is not the sign of death. It is the mark of the gardener's attention. A prune branch does not thank the gardener on the day of the cutting. It bleeds. It looks bare. It looks wrong. But the gardener is not confused about what he is doing. He is looking at the harvest that the branch does not yet know it will carry. Chosen one, God is looking at your harvest, even when you cannot see it, even when the season looks more like loss than growth. He sees what is coming, and He is not confused. There was a man who understood the cost of transformation better than almost any writer I have read. His name was C.S. Lewis, Oxford scholar, Christian thinker, a man who knew what it was to resist growth and what it cost to finally surrender to it. And Lewis once wrote, "It may be hard for an egg to turn into a bird. It would be a jolly sight. Harder for it to learn to fly while remaining an egg. You cannot have the wings and keep the shell. The very thing that once protected you, that once felt like home, must be surrendered before the flying can begin." Every act of self-discipline was you choosing the wings over the shell. Every early morning, every no, every boundary held when the pressure was enormous. Every quiet night you chose your purpose over your comfort. You were not becoming less, you were becoming more. And the shell cracked, not because you failed, but because you grew too large to stay inside it. That is not punishment, chosen one. That is the most accurate sign that what God placed inside you is exactly as real as He said it was. But here is what most people who walk this road never understand. The loneliness is not the cost of your growth. It is the evidence of it. It is proof that the frequency has shifted, proof that the shell has cracked, proof that what God placed in you is no longer containable in the old space. And there is a deeper layer beneath all of this, a layer that changes everything about how you see what God has been doing. I need to show it to you right now. If you are still with me right now, pause for just one moment. Type "I have outgrown this" in the comments, because right now, at this exact moment, there is a room full of chosen ones watching this message. People who chose the discipline, who chose the growth, who chose God, and felt the distance that came with it. Every single one of them is being prepared for exactly what you are being prepared for. Type it. And let us keep going, because what I am about to tell you is the part most people never reach. Listen carefully, chosen one. This is the part I most need you to hear. You did not outgrow the people. You outgrew the version of yourself that needed what they were offering. You outgrew the part of you that needed their validation to feel worthy, the part that needed their noise to feel less alone, the part that needed their permission to move forward, the part that needed someone else to confirm what God had already spoken directly to you. When that version of you began to die, the people whose connection was built on meeting that need had nothing left to anchor to, not because they failed you, but because you no longer required what that connection was designed to give. The distance was not rejection, chosen one. It was release, yours. Think about a building under serious construction. Scaffolding rises first. Metal poles, wooden platforms, temporary structures that hold the building upright while it cannot yet hold itself. Scaffolding is not the building. It was never meant to be. It holds the building through the season of greatest vulnerability. And then it comes down when the building no longer needs it. Chosen one, some of the relationships in your life were scaffolding. They were real. They mattered in their season. They held you through something you could not have survived without support. But they were not meant to be permanent. And when you found your own foundation, when you became strong enough to stand, the scaffolding came down. Not because it failed, because you were finally, fully ready. I want to be specific with you about something that no one else has been specific enough to say, because the distance did not come from one kind of relationship leaving. It came from 3 very specific kinds of people releasing you, and you releasing them. And when you understand what each of them actually represented, the grief transforms into something else entirely. The first person is what I call the comfort keeper. This is the person who loved the version of you that was still inside the shell. Not because they were cruel, not because they wanted you small, but because your smallness made their own smallness feel less like a choice. When you started choosing early mornings over late night conversations that went nowhere, when you started saying no to the things that emptied you, when you started becoming someone who required something different from life, the comfort keeper did not know where to put that. Your growth felt like a quiet verdict on their staying, even though you never said a word, even though you never looked at them with judgment. Your simply becoming was enough. And they stepped back, not out of cruelty, out of a grief they could not name. The second person is the ceiling friend. This is the person who genuinely loved you, who wanted you to succeed, but only up to a certain height, not beyond the ceiling they had drawn for themselves, and quietly, unconsciously drawn for you as well. When your prayers got bigger, when your dreams stopped sounding practical, when you started walking towards something they could not yet see, the ceiling friend went silent. Not because they hated what you were becoming, because they were afraid of what it meant, that you were willing to go somewhere they were not yet ready to go. Chosen one, that silence was not betrayal. It was the scaffolding removing itself exactly on schedule. The third person is the mirror. This is the person whose sense of purpose was built around reflecting you back to yourself, around being the one who knew you best, around having access to the version of you that needed what they offered. When you changed, when the version of you they were built around began to dissolve, they had no map for what came next. The new you required something from them that had not yet formed in them, something they could not yet give. And so they went quiet, not because you failed them, because the story had moved into a chapter that had not yet written a role for them. Chosen one, none of these people were your enemies. Every single one of them was a gift perfectly fitted to a season. The comfort keeper kept you soft when the world was pressing hard. The ceiling friend kept you grounded when your dreams felt dangerous. The mirror reminded you of who you were when you had almost forgotten. They each served their season faithfully. And God, in His kindness, in His precision, in His love, released you both. Them from a version of you they could not follow, and you from a version of yourself you no longer needed. That is not failure. That is the faithfulness of a God who never wastes a single season. And chosen one, I want to stop here for a moment, because I know what this season has felt like from the inside. Not just lonely, something quieter than lonely. It felt like standing in a room after everyone has left. Not a loud leaving, not a fight, Not a slamming door, just a slow emptying. And you stood there wondering if it was you. If you had somehow become a version of yourself that was too much for the people who once said they were staying. Let me ask you something. If someone had told you before this season started, everything familiar is about to become quiet, and that silence is going to be the very thing that prepares you for what God has been planning, would you have believed them? Probably not, because faith in the silence is not the same as comfort in it. You can believe God is working and still feel the weight of the room being empty. Both things are true, chosen one. The silence is real, and God is in it. In Genesis chapter 12, God speaks to Abram and says, "Leave your country, leave your people, leave your father's household, and go." Notice what God did not say. He did not say where. He said leave first. He said release what you know. Before I reveal where you are going, chosen one, God calls his chosen ones out before he calls them forward. He removes the familiar before he reveals the destination. Because if he showed you where you were going first, you might not be willing to leave where you are. The leaving is not the loss, chosen one. The leaving is the qualification. Abraham did not know where he was going. He packed a life without a map. He went not because he had certainty, but because he had a God who did. Chosen one, you have not been wandering in this season. You have been Abraham, walking away from what was certain toward what God has already prepared and not yet named for you. And now I need to tell you what none of your friends could tell you. What is being removed from your life right now is not the final story. It is clearing the ground. God is not leaving that space empty, chosen one. He is preparing a foundation for something that has never existed in your life before. But before I can show you what that is, I need to tell you something about death. But chosen one, wait. What I am about to tell you changes the meaning of every single thing you have ever grieved. This is not the first time this has happened. Every chosen one who was ever used greatly by God first went through a season where everything familiar died. Moses did not walk into his destiny from the palace. He walked toward it from the desert. 40 years of silence, 40 years of distance, 40 years of wandering. Joseph did not step from his father's house to his throne. He went through the pit, through the slave market, through the prison. David was anointed as king at 17 years old. Samuel poured the oil over his head. The Spirit of God came upon him. His family watched. The moment was undeniable. And then nothing resembling a throne appeared. What came next was Saul, the very King David, was anointed to replace, hunting him through wilderness and desert and mountain caves, year after year, with no timeline, no visible progress, no sign that the promise was still in motion. David wrote his most powerful psalms from inside those caves, not from a palace, from hiding, from confusion, from the prolonged, grinding dark. And some of those psalms sound like this: "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me?" Chosen one, David was not forgotten. He was being made into the king that the throne required. The crown needed hands that had learned to trust God without a timeline. The kingdom needed a ruler who knew what it cost to wait without certainty. The caves produced the Psalms. The Psalms outlasted every throne. And what God built in David during those years of hiding is still being read thousands of years later by people in their own caves. Your season is not wasted. Your season is being written into something that will outlast every room that went quiet. Elijah had just called fire from heaven. He had stood alone on Mount Carmel against 450 prophets and watched God answer with flames that consumed the altar, the sacrifice, the water in the trenches, the very stone beneath it. It was the greatest public miracle of his generation, his defining moment, his finest hour. And in the chapter immediately following that moment, he ran. He ran from one queen's threat. He ran until he could not run anymore. He sat under a broom tree in the wilderness and said to God, "It is enough. Take my life. I am no better than my fathers." The man who called fire from heaven, sitting in the dirt, asking to be done. Chosen one. Do you understand what this means for you? The wilderness does not come before the miracle. It comes after. The isolation does not come before God shows up in power. It comes after the greatest thing you have ever trusted him for. And God's answer to Elijah under that broom tree was not rebuke, not disappointment, not "how dare you feel this way after what I just did for you." He sent an angel with food, with water, with one sentence: "Arise and eat." Because the journey ahead is too great for you. The journey ahead of you is greater than the season behind you. And God is not standing at a distance, disappointed in how you are handling it. He is here, with food, with water, with the same words he spoke to Elijah: "Arise." The journey ahead is too great for the season to be wasted, and it will not be. Chosen one. Do you see the pattern? This is not coincidence. This is prerequisite. I need you to stop right here for a moment, because what I just showed you, Moses, Joseph, David, Elijah, those are not Sunday school stories. Those are your story. The desert, the pit, the cave, the broom tree. You have been in one of those places. And if you're watching this right now, you are still in it. Chosen one, you are not behind the great ones of Scripture. You are walking the same road they walked, and every single one of them came out on the other side of it, into a purpose so large, the suffering that produced it was eventually called preparation. Not tragedy, preparation. Type "this is my prerequisite" in the comments right now, because what I am about to tell you next is the part of this message that will change how you see every single hard season that has ever happened in your life. Stay with me. Think about a tree in winter. The leaves are gone. The fruit has vanished. The branches look bare and wrong. A stranger would say, "This tree is finished." But underneath the ground, in the cold, in the dark, the root system is doing the most important work of its existence, growing deeper, anchoring itself for a spring so full, so heavy with fruit, that only roots this deep could hold it. Chosen one, you are in winter, but you are not dead. You are becoming capable of a harvest that the old root system could never have carried. And I want to be honest with you. Nobody told you that growing would feel like grieving, that you would grieve people who are still alive, that you would miss conversations that did not end, they just grew quieter. It hurts. And grief is the cost of love, chosen one. You love the people you have outgrown. You are allowed without shame to feel the weight of releasing them. That grief is not weakness. It is evidence that you were fully present in the season that is now ending. C.S. Lewis wrote in his book Letters to Malcolm, his most personal and final reflections. Nothing that has not died will be resurrected. Nothing that has not died will be resurrected. Chosen one, the old version of you had to die. The version that needed permission, the version that could not say no without guilt, the version that shrank its dreams to fit rooms that were never designed to hold them. That version is dying, and I know you have been grieving it, because it was real. It was you. God is not asking you to pretend it was not. He is asking you to trust that what comes after the dying is worth everything the dying cost. This season is not a crisis. It is preparation. And the fact that it hurts, that is not a warning. That is proof. Proof that something genuinely real is being genuinely transformed. Shallow things do not hurt when they change. Only deep things hurt when they are reshaped. And you are not shallow, chosen one. You never were. God does not do his deepest work on the surface. He does it in the winter, in the root, in the quiet, in the place where no one else has been invited to look. You are not moving on from your old life. You are moving forward into your real one. And that is a completely different direction. But let me tell you something about what God has been doing during every moment of this winter season. While you were questioning, while you were grieving, while you were wondering if you had made a mistake, or missed a turn, or chosen the wrong road, God was building, not waiting for you to figure it out, not standing at a distance watching you struggle. Building. Every day of the silence was a day of construction. Every quiet night was a shift in the foundation. Every relationship that stepped back created space for something to be placed that could not fit while the old structure was still standing. Chosen one, the silence was not God's absence. It was his most concentrated presence, and what he has been building in you. In this season, in this quiet, in this exact wilderness, is something the noise could never have produced. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are almost ready. Chosen one, I need you to hear this with every part of you. The loneliness was not a byproduct of your growth. It was the method of it. God did not allow the distance to happen in spite of what he was building in you. He used the distance to build it. Every relationship that faded, every room that fell into quiet, every person who pulled back without explanation, none of that was random. None of that was carelessness. That was architecture. That was the most deliberate, most precise, most carefully loving thing God could have done for the person he was making you into. What you walked through was not an accident. It was a blueprint. When a surgeon operates, the room is silent. No celebration, no announcement, just the careful, exact work of hands that know precisely what they are doing and precisely why. The patient only feels the cutting, but the surgeon does not apologize for the incision, because the cut is the beginning of the healing. Chosen one, God has been your surgeon in this season. Every relationship that faded, a precision cut. Every room that grew quiet, a deliberate incision. Not cruelty, craft. The craft of a God who could see the infection you could not feel until it was gone. Chosen one, I need you to hear this next part with every part of you. Because what I am about to read you, this is the thing C.S. Lewis wrote that stopped me completely the first time I read it. And when you hear it, you will understand for the first time exactly what this entire season was. Not just the discipline, not just the distance, not just the loneliness, all of it. Stay with me for 30 more seconds, because this is the sentence that changes everything. And then C.S. Lewis said something I cannot leave behind. It is from Mere Christianity, from the chapter where Lewis describes what it means to truly let God rebuild a person completely. Imagine yourself as a living house. God comes in to rebuild that house. At first, perhaps you can understand what he is doing. He is getting the drains right and stopping the leaks in the roof and so on. But presently, he starts knocking the house about in a way that hurts abominably and does not seem to make any sense. The explanation is that he is building quite a different house from the one you thought of, throwing out a new wing here, putting on an extra floor there, running up towers, making courtyards. You thought you were going to be made into a decent little cottage, but he is building a palace. A palace, chosen one, not a renovation, not an upgrade of what was already there. A palace. You thought you were being renovated. God has been rebuilding. You thought he was making adjustments. He has been making a cathedral. You could not see it because you were standing inside the construction. But the architect was never confused. He could see the cathedral in what looked to you like rubble. And he had to remove certain walls, certain rooms, certain structures you had grown attached to, before he could reveal what this building was always designed to be: chosen one. You were not built for the room you left. You were built for the one you are walking toward. And every person who belongs in that room, God will bring to you, not the ones who knew who you were, the ones who know who you are becoming. They are not behind you. They are ahead of you, already on their way. The Apostle Paul wrote from a prison cell, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead. I press on toward the goal, forgetting what is behind. He did not say, pretend it never cost anything. He said, forget it. Leave it where it is. Because the chosen one does not live in the finished chapter. The chosen one lives in the becoming. And the becoming is always forward. Never backward, always forward. Press on, chosen one. An arrow cannot move forward while it is still being held. The fingers must open. The bow must release. And what looks like being left behind, what feels like being held back, is actually being drawn back before the launch. God has been drawing you back, chosen one, pulling you into position, building the velocity, aiming with a precision your natural eyes cannot track. And the release when it comes will be worth every second you spent wondering why the bow had not yet let go, chosen one. Before we pray together, I need to tell you what God has been building toward during every moment of this winter season, because the loneliness was not just about what was being removed, it was about what God was preparing to place. He has been preparing people for you, not replacements for the ones who step back, not the same kind of connection wearing a different face, something entirely new. People who are being shaped right now in their own wilderness for the exact version of you that is emerging from yours. They have been in their own seasons of silence, their own early mornings, their own quiet rooms, their own versions of the distance you have been living, and God has been working in them the same way He has been working in you, pointing them toward the same horizon. When you arrive, and you will arrive, they will not need you to explain where you have been, because they will have been there too. The people who are coming will meet you exactly where you have arrived, not where you used to be, not who you used to need to be for someone else, who you actually are right now, in this moment. He has been preparing a purpose that required this exact season to build it, not a slightly improved version of what you already knew, something that has never existed in your life before, something that required the silence to construct it, required the distance to create the capacity for it, required the winter to deepen the root system that will hold it. Every discipline you chose when no one was watching deposited something permanent into the person you are becoming. Every morning you chose the harder right thing that became something in you that cannot be removed. Every boundary you held when the pressure was enormous, that became a wall of something permanent. Every quiet night you chose God's direction over your own comfort, that became a foundation that is now ready to carry weight. None of it was lost. Not one morning, not one no, not one quiet night. All of it was deposit. And the purpose coming toward you requires exactly the person those deposits built. Chosen one, I need you to hear this before we pray. You did not waste this season. You did not lose ground while everyone else moved forward. You were not standing still. You were going deeper. While others were moving across the surface, you were growing roots that can hold a harvest they have not yet imagined. And the harvest is coming, not as a reward for your patience, as the natural result of roots, this deep finally meeting their spring. He has been preparing a version of you that did not exist before this season, a version with deeper roots, stronger walls, wider capacity, quieter confidence, a version that does not need the room to be loud, to know that God is in it, a version that does not need constant confirmation, because the conversation with God has become direct enough that you no longer need someone else to translate it. That version of you, the one that was built in the silence, is the one that is about to be released, not into the life you had before, into the life God has been building toward. The palace, chosen one, not the cottage. You came to this season thinking you were being repaired. God was building something the world has never seen from you before, and it is ready. Pray with me right now. Father, I release what I have outgrown. I release the grief of rooms that no longer fit and relationships that have grown quiet. I release the version of me that needed permission, that needed someone else's confirmation, to believe what you already told me. I trust that your hands were in every distance, in every quiet, in every season I did not understand, and I receive the peace that passes understanding, the direction that comes after the release, the people who are already being prepared to stand beside me in what comes next. I press forward, not because I am certain of every step, but because you are, and that is enough. Amen. Chosen one. The loneliness was never the end of the story. It was the beginning of the real one. You did not lose your way in this season. You found it. Every quiet night, every empty chair, every distance that felt like abandonment, it was preparation, all of it. And what God is leading you toward has been worth every single step of what you walked through to get here. You did not miss your moment. You are walking into it. If this message found you tonight, it was not a coincidence. It was an appointment. Subscribe to this channel, Chosen One, because what God is building in you deserves to be fed not just in the moments of crisis, but in the quiet, in the construction, in the becoming. Every week on this channel, we speak directly to the chosen one in the waiting, to the one who is still holding on. You were meant to be here. Subscribe. Walk forward, chosen one. God goes before you. The room you are walking toward is already prepared. The people meant to stand beside you are already being aligned. The harvest from this winter root is already growing underground. You have not been abandoned. You have been aimed. Walk forward and carry this with you. Everything ahead of you is worth everything you left behind. Everything. Peace be with you, chosen one.